What do other people think about Punisher One Last Kill? If you watched my show earlier, you know that I enjoyed it. Like, I thought the last 20 some odd minutes was a symphony of glorious, beautifully orchestrated violence that was everything a Punisher fan could want to see. At the same time, I did think the first half was a little bit weak. Like, I felt like the Frank character regressed a little bit. He felt like a different Frank than what we just had in Punisher Born Again Season 1 or in the Netflix Punisher. And the fact that he took out the last remaining people responsible for the death of his family off camera was a bit of a weird choice, but still, overall, I enjoyed it. Now, I asked my viewers on YouTube if they had any videos they would like me to engage with, and you guys sent in a bunch of suggestions, so let's jump to it.
Hey, Red, I got my own special presentation. Sup, nerd? So I just watched Punisher.
Okay, first of all, that's a pretty good John Bernthal. Hey, Red. Okay, full marks for that already.
One Last Kill. I'm going to be honest, I thought this was at least going to be an hour, one episode like Werewolf by Night, but it's 45 minutes. Now, let me say one thing.
So it's funny how many people I've seen online mention that. It's like, I couldn't believe how short it was. It's like, they did advertise this was one of the special presentations. The other two special presentations they've done was 49 minutes, which I believe is how long Werewolf by Night was, and 39 minutes, which was the Guardians of the Galaxy one. So coming in at about 44, 45, 46 minutes, that's like right in the middle. But still, it was kind of surprising how many people that caught off guard that it was only like 40 some odd minutes long.
There is about 30 minutes of this show that is pure rage. I'm talking continuous action,
I'll say it was about 20 to 23 minutes of that before they got into it, maybe not 30, but it was really good once it got started.
Continuous fighting, it's glorious. A Punisher show is a lot like Ned Leeds. You know what you're gonna get. A big guy at a buffet pushing children and old ladies out of the way just to get his food. It's the same thing here.
Okay, first of all, leave Jacob Bartolone alone. He is a treasure. Don't you be making fun of Jacob Bartolone like that.
You have the Punisher dealing with the death of his family, killing and fighting off mob bosses, different gangs trying to come and kill him. It's 30 minutes of pure floor-to-floor action. It's a lot like The Raid, if you ever seen that movie. No dialogue, no exposition.
Yeah, it's funny, before I even saw it, I saw some early reactors comparing it to The Raid, which is like one of the all-time, it's now like the gold standard of like action in movies, I guess. And so I saw a lot of comparisons. And obviously for the first like 20 minutes, I didn't see it. But once they got to the second half and the bass dropped and the Punisher emerged, then yeah, I totally got the comparison to The Raid at that point.
Just fighting. Just John Bernthal as the Punisher, screaming and killing. Now that's fine. It was gory, bloody,
that's
everything
fair.
I wanted to see out of the Punisher. Would I have liked a little more? Sure. But he's going to be in Daredevil Born Again Season 3. He's going to be in Spider-Man Brand New Day, and that's fine. He doesn't really set up.
You know what? He makes a good point there, because by the time we get to the end of One Last Kill, he's got the new haircut, his beard is nice and trimmed, his Punisher outfit is looking nice and tight, right? He's looking good. I feel like that was meant to set up, okay, this is now a new Frank that you're about to see in Spider-Man Brand New Day, and maybe even a new Frank that we see in, Daredevil Born Again Season 3.
Okay, so I'm going to be completely honest here. When it comes to the Punisher character, or shall I say the character arc that we've been
Can I just say I already like this guy's energy a lot?
witnessing since John Bernthal has taken the mantle, two things most certainly can be true at once. Because yes, while the character arc that we've been following for John Bernthal has been mainly some of the same repetitive revenge story arc beats that we have gotten since he's first shown up on screen, I will also say that those same repetitive beats are some of the most impactful and entertaining things that John Bernthal can do with this character. It's like, yes, the formula may still be the same, but I'm gonna be real, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Cause revenge is a dish best served with a Frank Castle, no, or Frank Castle.
I'm sorry, I gotta rewind that for a second.
No, or Frank.
That's one of the best Frank Castles I've ever heard.
Castle Primal Scream. To get you hype.
That is also a very good Frank Castle. Okay, let me talk about what he just said there about formula, because a lot of people treat formula, I myself included, treat formula like a bad word. Like if you apply formula to something, that means automatically bad. And it's not true. Even though I will often use formula as a point of criticism, it's not true. Like if you look at shows like House, or if you look at shows like Grey's Anatomy, or what's a longer, Law and Order, or something like that, right? Like there is a formula. Like even one of my favorite shows, Supernatural, right? There was a basically bit of a formula when they were in their Creature of the Week kind of thing. If the formula works, and if you have found that thing that really brings the character to life and also really satisfies the audience, then you don't want to stray too far from that formula, right? Like you don't want to lean into it too much. Like formula is like anything else. It's a tool. It can be used well. It can be used badly. If you overuse it, then it just feels repetitive. But if you stray from it too much, especially if it's something that's been successful, then what you risk is the fan base accusing you of alienating the character or not being true to the character. So I agree with him. It's what the audience is coming to The Punisher to see. Again, you don't want to lean too much into the formula lest it becomes too repetitive, but basically I like what he's saying here. Yeah, I think he's absolutely right about this.
I'm not calling it The Punisher One Last Kill, because we knew damn well when they titled this thing Punisher One Last Kill, this was not going to be the last kill. I said, who are y'all fooling? And then
first of all, he's 100% right. Like, I thought, who are they trying to fool calling this One Last Kill? We know, like, he's not retiring. We know he's coming back in Spider-Man. We strongly believe he's going to be back in Daredevil Born Again Season 3, although I'm not 100% sure about that. But then even in the show, right? Like in the show, or in the special, I should say, he's like killing hundreds of people. And like, that's not the last kill. And then that's not the last kill. But then you meet Judith Light. And once we meet Judith Light, like I don't know about you, but I went, that's our one last kill. She's the last one he's got to get. But then the thing ends and we never get back around to Judith Light. Now we may again sometime in the future, but yeah, I completely agree with him. I thought this was a little bit of a misleading title.
That special was the single greatest thing that Marvel has ever put out. Let's talk about it.
I will automatically and instantly disagree. Like I liked it. I mean, I guess here's the thing though. This speaks to the subjectivity of stuff because part of how you and I respond to something is partially impacted by what we went to it hoping to get, right? Like if you're somebody who went to Punisher One Last Kill looking to really deepen our understanding of Frank and seeing his process of dealing with his trauma and all that kind of stuff, well, then you might have walked away a little bit disappointed. But if what you came to it with, and we all come to every piece of art with certain expectations, right? If you came to it looking and say, look, I want some glorious Frank Castle action, then this one's going to have that type of a bigger impact on you. But yeah, I personally don't think it's like the best thing or anywhere close to the best thing Marvel's ever produced. But again, if you're coming to it looking for a certain thing and it delivers that in spades, I can see why you'd have that reaction.
So I just got done watching The Punisher, The Last Kill or whatever it's called, the special. And to me, that was the greatest single piece of content that we have gotten in the MCU. And I 100% truthfully mean that. As somebody who's read some of The Punisher, but has never actually watched the show, that was insane.
Okay, first of all, I find that interesting that he loved that part of the Punisher so much and yet hasn't gone back to watch like Punisher in Daredevil on Netflix or the 2 seasons of Punisher on TV or saw him. And I find that very interesting that he'd be so hype about what this one gave and yet he hasn't seen him on his own show before. Again, nothing wrong with that. I just find that interesting that he had that reaction to it.
PTSD, depression, violence, John Wick style, but
here's the thing. The show does dive into like the PTSD, the depression. That's always been one of the most fascinating things to me about this iteration of Frank Castle. The problem was I just felt like they touched on that stuff much better in previous stuff, whether it was on Netflix or already on Disney Plus, right? So I actually found that part of it to be a little weaker. Now, again, I might be misunderstanding. Maybe he has seen that other stuff, but I'm going on the assumption that he hasn't seen the other stuff because of what he said. If he hasn't seen the other stuff, then I can understand why seeing them even touching on PTSD and his depression, how that would be like really inspiring that they would go there with that, right? I guess maybe the reason I was a little bit more underwhelmed with it, if I think about it, might have just been because I've seen them cover that stuff before in a way that I just thought they did better. But if you hadn't seen it yet, I can see it having a really, really big positive impact.
Better, just the dog scene, bro, the dog scene. And the revenge at the end, and I don't know who was cooking with that soundtrack, but that is the greatest amount of music we've ever gotten.
It was good. It was a good soundtrack.
Seriously, I'm not even exaggerating. Clears.
Okay, I gotta say, the dog thing. Like when this show started, when this special started, I keep calling it a show. When this special started, and they kick things off first of all with that cowardly attack, and then taking the dog and just killing the dog. And you know, I said this before in the show, whether it's John Wick or this, it's funny how we as audiences can see like a mass murderer kill 30 people in a movie and go, wow, that's a very bad person. But once somebody hurts a dog, we're like, F that guy, kill them now. And I gotta say, I agree with this dude. That was so satisfying. Like completely unnecessary. Did Frank need to put that guy down at the end? He didn't need to, granted. This isn't real life though. It's the MCU, and I gotta say, I found it extremely satisfying.
So I just watched Punisher One Last Kill. This is my initial reaction. We're gonna save the review. This is Frank Castle at his best. Brutal and bloody, and I've said that before, right? But it really is. It's everything Punisher fans are going to want to see. And frankly, that's a pun. You're going to get a kick out of what he accomplished.
Okay, first of all, you already know I'm going to agree with what he just said about like if people who wanted that side of Punisher, they wanted to see that action, that visceral violence and all that kind of stuff. This is exactly right on the nose of what people were coming to see. This is what they wanted to watch. And I think it's really also important, had a good impact for them that instead of starting with 25 minutes of action and then going into the more dramatic, the show leaves people on a much higher note, leaving the action and all the violence and stuff like that right towards the end. So I think that was a good choice on their part.
In the final 20 minutes of this special. And that's what it is. It's a 45-minute special. Don't go into this expecting a movie. Frankly, again, keep doing that. Don't expect something you haven't seen for this iteration of the character before. We are hitting similar emotional beats, and I'll dive.
So he's kind of saying what that other guy was saying about how he's inferencing and implying there's a bit of a formula. Don't come into Punisher expecting something completely different. Like, we're not going to watch Punisher opening up a Cinnabon, right? We're going in, people are coming this to see Punisher be Punisher. And I think they knew, I think John Bernthal and Marvel, they understood that was the mission. And honestly, I think they kind of delivered on it.
Deeper in the review, but those emotional beats are still emotional because John Bernthal is giving it every ounce of himself here. The performance is fantastic. You can tell he had a hand in this. He co-wrote this, but once...
You know what? I love that he brought that up. Because in a lot of the discussion, ours included, about Punisher One Last Kill, we're all talking and geeking out over the violence and stuff like that, and the great creative kills and all that stuff, and maybe even complaining a little bit about the first part. But one of the things we have not a lot of people have touched on, which I'm glad he did, is the performance was fantastic. Like, I may have felt like they had Frank regressed a little bit. Fine, maybe that was a mistake, maybe it wasn't. But even if it was a mistake, he played it to perfection. You know, that's one of the great things about John Bernthal as Punisher. It's not just that he's got the right look. Too many comic book fans are looking for somebody to have the same look. That's not important. What's important is the guy can manifest it. And I think John Bernthal absolutely crushes it. And this is a great example of him doing it.
I just watched the Punisher special. First things first, was the audio mixing terrible for anyone else? Because I was turning the volume up.
Yes. And you know what? I didn't even say it out loud to Anne or my buddy Ryan who were watching it with me, but I did notice, I mean, it wasn't as bad as some Christopher Nolan Inception kind of stuff. I wasn't, not Inception, whatever the other one is, but well, almost any Christopher Nolan project, really. It wasn't as bad as that. It wasn't as bad as some other things I've seen, but you're the first person, this is the first person I've seen kind of mention that. I did notice it too. I thought the sound mix was a little bit wonky. And I didn't know if it was just my own sound system. Like I've got a Sonos surround thing, and I thought maybe it just wasn't playing nice with the Sonos surround. Maybe that was just me, but I'm glad she mentioned it because I hadn't said it out loud and I haven't heard anybody else mention it. So I agree with her.
And down and up and down and up and down the whole time. Other than that, I did really like it. There was a lot more needle drops than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Some of them I think were good, some of them not as much. I'll definitely make another video. I like the little story. I wish it was like 10 hours, 20 hours, 100 hours, possibly just an infinite loop of Frank Castle content longer.
Here's the thing. I think a lot of people, this goes back to how so many people were not prepared for or ready for or didn't know it was only going to be 45 minutes. Like they were expecting a movie, right? But when you look at the story they were going to tell, if the whole purpose of, and I'm speculating here, but if the whole purpose of Punisher One Last Kill is to take us from the Frank that we had in Daredevil Born Again Season 1 and transition him into the Frank that we see in Spider-Man Brand New Day, then maybe this part of the purpose and function of One Last Kill was to give us what that journey was. And if that's the case, I don't know that there was a lot more story to tell. Like I said, I would have appreciated seeing him finishing off the last mobsters responsible for the death of his family. I would have liked seeing him regress, right? Because like I said earlier, one of my big criticisms is that he's a much bigger mess right now than we've ever seen him before. It would have been nice to have something to show him descend into that rather than just pick up where we did, because it didn't even feel like the same Frank. Basically, my point is, I think a lot of us were feeling like, man, I could watch 10 of these, but really maybe by the end of the day, this was exactly how long it should have been. Because I think maybe if it had gone on much longer, other than maybe one more Judith Light scene, I think maybe would have started feeling drawn out.
Punisher One Last Kill has me convinced that Marvel does not understand the Punisher, or more so, John Bernthal doesn't understand the Punisher, seeing as he wrote this. Frank Castle is not a frothing war machine that loves to kill. He's also not someone who's schizophrenic and is going, no, 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 all the time. That shit is getting old.
Okay, here's what I would say to that is, I often have this conversation with my fellow movie fans about whether it's based on books or comic books, especially comic books, which is a lot of time fans of certain comic book characters forget or get confused about this isn't the comic book. Like this is the MCU. This is a different Frank. And by the way, Frank has been portrayed like a lot of other comic book characters. He has been portrayed in many different ways throughout the years. Like sometimes he's more this way, sometimes he's more that way, sometimes he's a completely different kind of guy. But there's some core elements to the character that are always kind of there and present. And Marvel is now taking their own version of the Punisher, and they're keeping those core things about him. And so I would say that, yeah, maybe he's not the exact Frank from the comic, but none of the MCU characters are meant to be the exact carbon copy from the comic book page. This is a different medium. And so they're going to treat him a different way. Now, where I would agree though, is that this Frank that we get in One Last Kill feels a little bit inconsistent with the Frank we've gotten in the other MCU stuff. But other than that, I don't think John Bernthal doesn't understand Punisher. And I also think it's understandable that his iteration would be unique because throughout the history of the Punisher and the different writers and artists, he's often come across as a bit unique.
He is also someone who does not wrestle with giving up his mission. He sees what he does as necessary. This narrative of putting the gun down only to be drawn back in has been done 3 times now, and it's kind of wearing old.
He's not wrong about that. He's not wrong about that. But he also says something interesting there about how he never gives up on the mission. I wonder and I might be completely wrong about that. This is just me wondering out loud. I wonder, like I said earlier, if part of One Last Kill is him embracing that mission. That, you know, before, from what we've had of him in Daredevil and in Punisher on Netflix, it's been about avenging his family and getting sidetracked there as well. But I wonder if this is about him embracing that mission. You know, we get to the end of it because his Phantom war buddy says to him, what's your purpose now? And then at the end, when the little girl gives him the flower, he's like, without saying it out loud, this is my purpose. To help people who can't help themselves, to protect people who can't protect themselves. Maybe this is the genesis of that for this version of, or maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I'm just completely wrong talking out of my ass. I don't know.
Now, that's just issues regarding characterization. To me, it has other issues regarding how it's actually filmed. To me, it's shot a lot like a student film, in that the general problem with student films is that they're highly emotional. They're going for big moments, but they don't have scenes that build up to those moments. So a lot of it reads as empty emotion.
You know what? I agree. Like the moment we get into even the opening, the first like 10 minutes of One Last Kill, it's just thick. Frank is depressed. Frank feels sad. Like it's really, really there. And like I said earlier, it would have been nice to see the process of him descending to that rather than just right out of the gate. He's completely off his gourd, like rather than coming right out of the gate. And I think he just made a really good observation about that, because that is the same thing. I think he articulated it better than I did, that it really would have been nice to see why we're there rather than just jumping in and he's in this totally different place that we've seen him before, already so deep. And there's nothing been shown to us yet that gets us to that point, or using an overused term, earned yet. So yeah, I think that's a really good observation.
Punisher One Last Kill review. Listen, I mean, it was all right. It wasn't nothing spectacular. This didn't feel that long at all, even though it was 48 minutes long. It didn't feel like 48 minutes, which I mean is probably a good thing.
You know, first of all, he's right. If it feels short to you, that's a good thing. It did not feel short to me. I'm not saying it felt like, oh, it went on and on, never. No. I was just remembering watching it, and about halfway through the action sequence, I was like, has it not been 44 minutes yet? It feels like movie length. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but to me, like the time didn't fly by. It felt like I was enjoying it, and it just but it felt like it was longer than 44 minutes to me.
Frank was really going through it, man. He was having a bad day. He was basically ready to give up. And I think that was the whole point of this show, that he was literally about to give up. And then he locks back in at the end. That man that killed the dog, I said, there was no need. I'm so glad he died at the end. Put that man's hat on his poor dog for no reason.
The best line, I said this earlier on the show today, the best line I think of the whole special was right there near the end. And the old man gets the hat back. And I'm paraphrasing, I might not have the wording exactly right, but he says, "That's not the only thing he took from me." My heart broke. My heart broke at that scene. Like I absolutely love that line. And when he said that line, you knew Frank is going to give this dude his comeuppance. All right, guys, and that's what some other people thought about Punisher One Last Kill. Have you had a chance to watch it yet? What did you think? What did you think about all the different opinions and points of view that some of these folks gave? Whatever you guys saw, jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. That'll do it for me for now, guys. My name's John Campea. Bye-bye.